Hello, I am Ebony Williams.
And I am Vern Cooper, and we interrupt this program to weep.
To we are not okay. We are,
So,
you know what? You see that Max preview, like that was talking about all these big moments in TV? I think they were trying to warn us that we were not going to be okay after this.
and so for context, we are here to discuss season 2, episode 2 of The Last of Us. And if you've seen that episode, you know why we're upset. And if you haven't, spoiler alert, go watch the episode and do not listen any further until you have,
Right.
because our dearly departed Joel Miller, let's just get into it. I mean, he was the rock of the first season.
Hmm.
'Cause I suppose what we're gonna be doing is listing all the reasons why the character needed to die. Which and just last week, we were talking about how we needed to trust the process. How'd
Yeah.
that go?
Look, we trust them, and look what happened. They just shattered our dreams. When I turned off the episode, like I just sat in silence and cried. I was like, I wasn't ready. I was not ready for any of that. And then it was so funny because afterwards, you know how they do the making of the episode. Craig Mason was like, okay, let's talk about what you just saw. Like, please, I need you to walk me through this.
I turned
Okay.
it off. I didn't watch that part. I didn't do it on purpose. I just clicked a button and it went out, and I didn't.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I was like, maybe I'll see it later. The reasons, I guess, are multiple. One is that the tension with both. I mean, all the stuff we were talking about last week with Ellie and Tommy both sort of living in Joel's shadow. Not They were at an impasse with his ability to continue to mentor them and be there for them in his
Yeah.
way, which is Joel's way is to do things for you.
Mhm.
And Ellie and Tommy can no longer tolerate that because they have to be leaders in their own right.
Right.
The other,
I hope one of my hopes is that he had a chance to tell her before. And I say that because I saw a preview and it was like, Ellie was like, you promised. And I didn't see that in this episode, which makes me think that maybe we'll see a flashback of Joel. Because I hope that Joel got that off his chest before he passed.
well, and obviously a ton of time passed that we didn't spend with
Hmm.
them. And we know that the game is very non-linear when it comes to its narrative. And the
Hmm.
first season was too. I don't know yet whether this chronology lines up with the game, but I felt really, as soon as I realized it was happening, I just felt like a deer in headlights. I was like, I'm not ready. It's too soon. I knew that, even though I knew this is coming, and that's really masterful storytelling. The show, everything had been signaling up to this point that, and the
Yeah.
other main reason why Joel needed to work for the world and story, or needed to die for the world and story to continue, is this theme of the cycle of violence and its consequences.
Yeah. Yes. I also thought about that it also happened in ways that were different from the game. Like there were some things that were similar. And I say this having not played the game, but like just from things that I've seen getting ready for season 2, it seemed like there were some differences. Am I wrong?
I think, and everything I've learned from my friends who played the game and just from consuming, like, exterior content to the show, is that they intentionally ramped up or increased the departures from the game. And I can see why they would do that from a television production adaptation standpoint,
Hmm.
because the game was so recent. How do you surprise, or how do you manage an audience that already knows the story,
Yeah.
played it last year?
Yeah.
What did you think of Abby?
What did I think of Abby? Definitely an anti-hero. I want to not like her because she took away somebody that I'm invested in. Like, I was invested in Joel. I was invested in Ellie. I was invested in their dynamic. I struggled with her for a while. Like, that scene when they're walking away from the lodge. Like, it really took everything in me not to hate Abby. I had to be like, okay, so first of all, this is an actor really playing this role well. So don't
Yeah.
send him mail tomorrow because, she did her job.
I saw a meme when she was cast, when Caitlin Deaver was cast. There was a meme going around Instagram, I think, that said, "We got to protect this woman from the internet."
Cause like I needed to say to them, this is an actress and she did the thing. She did it.
She's killing it. And she's has a really wide body of work, but I predominantly know her from comedies and things from 10 plus years ago. She was in Booksmart. It's really great. I don't know, coming of age story. But she has transitioned to more serialized television. This in particular, this character is very the brutality and the she represents in terms of not karma, because I don't think that's what they're trying to say. I don't think they're trying to tell us karma. I think they're really trying to represent consequences, not some like external force
Mhm.
that we hope for. That, think about the times when people ask for karma. I think that they're trying to say like instead there will always be violent or consequences to violence.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I'm gonna have to think a little bit and get back with you on how I feel about that.
Yeah.
About what I think they're trying to say. And I say that because I feel like I need to see where the season goes. Because what the question that I asked myself when Ellie said, "I'm gonna kill you," is when does this stop?
That's it. Like that, I
You
think
know?
that's what they're trying to say is that like violence, if this is how the majority of us respond to something like
Mhm.
this, then this is simply just violence begets violence. And in a world as violent as that one,
Mhm.
this is a really extreme example.
Mhm.
Most of us aren't living our lives the way these folks are.
Yeah.
So like for them, it's every day.
And that's one of the things I talked about. I mean, not talked about, but thought about. Is this what you would call martial law?
I think martial law, maybe it's kind of like the opposite. I'm not
Hmm.
sure. I don't actually know what martial law means. I think.
So the reason why I said that is because the government, the federal government isn't there. Like the fireflies are gone.
Yeah.
Like where we are, we haven't seen Fedra. So who's holding people accountable for these things? Um,
There's
so
not a
you know,
justice system.
right, there's no justice system. So then what does that look like in the world, in this world in particular?
They're gonna have to decide. They're gonna
Yeah.
have to figure out a way. So an example or maybe a micro example of how that looks for them currently is the way Maria facilitated the sort of follow-up between Seth and Ellie before Ellie went out on her patrol.
Hmm.
And Maria was like, "You two come here. You've got something to say, don't you?" Do you think that Seth like meant what he said?
Do I think he meant it? I don't know.
Trying to remember exactly the way he said it first because it was something like, just I'm sorry about that or something. And Ellie said, yeah, it happens. We all get drunk and say things we've never thought before,
Yeah.
which is snarky, very Ellie, but also the point, right? This argument of like, oh, I was drunk doesn't hold water. And so he agreed. He said, "You're right. I shouldn't have said it and I shouldn't have thought it."
Hmm.
And so I do believe that he actually I felt like he actually did mean that, like, he wished he could think differently because having those thoughts, if you're someone who is like, that's a place where we often find people in a learning process of unlearning bias or racism or homophobia or something, like, the first step is often going like, "I wish I didn't even have to think about these people like this." So I was like, I believe him, but Ellie doesn't. That's too little too late. She's never going to get past that.
Yeah, I think for Ellie, there needs to be a connection for there to be forgiveness. I think she could forgive Joel. I don't know that she can forgive somebody that she doesn't care about like that. I
Well, and
don't know. I could be wrong.
forgiveness is a lot of work. Asking someone to forgive you is asking them to go back and make sense of all the stuff you did. Like, I mean, you're just asking them for a lot of like psychological effort, a lot of emotional labor. And
Mhm.
sometimes if you don't believe that they won't do it again, it's not worth doing. So I guess that makes sense.
So there is something that I want to talk about, and it seems like we're not talking about this chronologically, and this is our show, so we can do what we want. No,
Right.
I'm just kidding.
We
I
can.
don't want to Okay, so I had a moment last night when I was watching the show, and again, I had another callback moment. And I have been so excited to talk to you about this because, okay, so I have to admit a couple of things that I watched The Last of Us so many times that I started keeping track of how many times I watched particular episodes. So the particular episode I'm going to talk about, I've watched it at least 15 times, and it's episode 7. And I used to think because we were doing the original podcast during that time, and like I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking about stuff, like I would process in my sleep. So I woke up one morning and I realized how Ellie got Joel to that house after he was stabbed. And the way I saw it in my head, because I was like, is it one of those Beauty and the Beast things, when the beast, you know what I'm saying? And somehow the beast got on the horse and we don't know how he got on the horse. But then I came to the conclusion because yes,
I know
yes,
what you're talking
you know
about.
exactly you know where I'm
Oh
going
my
with this.
God.
You know where I'm going.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. So one morning I woke up and it occurred to me that she dragged him. And then yesterday when they were dragging
Yeah.
him, it was not okay.
Yeah.
I was not okay.
Oh my God.
And okay, so I got to go a couple of places here. So two clear differences from that moment in season 1 to this moment. Ellie is not alone anymore. And I think you and I talked about how that was the thing. If Joel wasn't there, she's out in the world by herself. And now I think even though somebody I was invested in is gone, that hopelessness I felt in that moment, like, how in the world is she going to manage this? I knew that she had support. You know what I'm saying? I knew that she had people holding on to her on that horse.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know if that was intentional, like it was supposed to be a callback.
It was intentional because now that you're talking, I see others.
Yeah.
He died in a very particular way. He's punctured
Hmm.
again. He's been like
Yeah.
stabbed again. But also when she in the flashback, they showed us this scene in particular too in the recap before the episode, where she's screaming at him like, "Don't you die. I can't do
Uh,
this without you." She's on top of him crying. And she's saying exactly what we know too, which is that if you die, I am dead and everybody has left me but you. And up until that point, that was her experience. Someone appears and they leave, and he was just the next in line at that time. But this time, when she was, and so then it really did feel like hopelessness and like his death was as much a concern for her continued existence.
right.
But this time, it his death, which he actually does, do, is just purely sad. It's just grief.
It's
She's
just
not
grief.
Yeah, she's not pleading with him to stay alive so that he can protect her. She's pleading with him to stay alive because she loves him.
Right.
And that was such a big difference. And the fact that she is now scaffolded with other people
Hmm.
to love and rely on and to learn from. That's a very different, and it also like makes me think of just the way, grief is different when you
Hmm.
have people than when you're alone.
Hmm.
Or just the way our funerary practices are set up so that they actually incorporate community and family.
Yeah, gosh, I remember what it was like to grieve losing a parent and know you have people around you. You're still alone. Like I don't know. And that's another thing that I thought about as thinking about everything with Ellie and knowing that moment. We knew this was coming. And I wanted her to make her peace with them before this came because we don't know it's coming.
This is
Like,
a
you know,
this is a big rupture.
it's a big rupture.
Losing someone violently and unexpectedly without having had that time to even like just start to conceptualize saying goodbye to them, it's very different. And it's kind of two different griefs, I guess.
Hmm.
And so when my brother was killed, he was 25, and we hadn't set eyes on him for, it was like 6 months or more. It could have been more than 6 months because he was deployed. And so it was like this news that is, it's traveling across the globe for
Mm,
hours, and then it just reaches you and you don't have any information. You're like, there's not only is there no warning, there's no concept of how it even occurred.
yeah,
And so sometimes the suddenness of a thing is its own specific trauma.
yeah.
And I think, and then Ellie they were making eye contact when he passed, which is
And he
kind of
tried, oh my God, he tried to
he
get
tried to
up.
stand up. I know. The moment she shot him in the knee, that was the end right there. Couldn't survive that moment, and Ellie
No.
can't save him. Which I mean, you want to talk about the things that she's going to be dealing with.
And it wasn't even the moment he was shot in the knee. It was the moment he laid eyes
The
on.
moment he saved her.
Right, right. It was
The
the
moment
moment he
and
saved her.
the moment he saved Ellie is the moment he was going to die.
Well, that's true too.
I mean, we could keep the, and that's, I guess, one thing about this, the cycle of violence as they're building this particular cycle is you can keep trending backwards. You can trace this back to the moment Sarah died, at least in our knowledge of the story, which is again about trauma. I mean, that's another unexpected death. He was making eye contact with her when she died. But there's more than one kind of violence, I guess.
What do you mean?
There's the violence, there's physical violence that we intentionally perpetrate on one another.
Mhm,
And then there's the additional violences
mhm.
that are inside each of the decisions we make about how to go about that. And I think that's the story that's going to be told with Eugene, or what we learn about Eugene. Because you remember what Gail said is that she understood that he had to kill him, but she didn't like the way he did it. So something, I mean, that's a weird thing to say.
But and I mean, that also makes me think there's some parallels there, right? We didn't like the way Joel was killed.
It was obscene, you know.
It was obscene. It was obscene. It was painful.
And she laid it out for us. You know, she said, I'm doing this because of this, and I know it's wrong. She said, it's against my code. And she said something afterwards that I guess was meant to say that like she was breaking the code because she believed that there was a flat moral, some sort of moral baseline that negated all other morality, and that he had
Okay.
crossed it, and that allows her to cross it as well. That is, I think, what they're ultimately trying to problematize. Is like this
Mhm.
idea that anything gives us the right to decide who lives and who dies, especially with revenge.
Yeah.
It's also very particular that it's not the fact that he killed the soldiers that they're upset about, it's killing the civilian, the unarmed
Yeah.
civilian.
Who was going to kill Ellie, right? Like,
He was kind of, and when they showed the flashback, it was really interesting. It was helpful to me to be able to remember exactly what that looked like because he did like he just had like shark eyes, when he was just kind of on autopilot. He'd been killing and killing and killing for minutes now, and he just didn't. It didn't occur to him not to kill the next person he saw.
and not to kill a person with the scalpel. Like the person who was about to kill Ellie. Like,
Yeah, yeah, and that's his primary tool, and it was all warmed up. So just this, I'll just continue to solve the problem this way because I'm in a hurry. And I think that that's one thing that really causes us to make to causes some of the most like unintentional harm that we do to one another is simply like, I have a hammer, so everything is a nail.
I recently said that quote to a friend of mine, but I said it differently. When you're a nail, everything is a hammer.
Mm,
Like when you're used to being on that side of trauma,
yeah.
like everything that may not be that feels like that, especially when you're used to not trusting people. And
Mhm.
now you have to trust. You loved before and now you're trying to love again. And the thing that may just be growth still feels like a hammer.
I recently wrote an essay about cynicism and how cynicism is, it's like one of the many things that is done to us that, it's just maybe a result or culmination of the experiences that we have, but it is part of the something that kind of greases the wheels in making our responses to further things more and more negative or more and more negatively impactful. And I think trauma or minority stress, microaggressions, all those things, cynicism is part of that machine that makes those things even more impactful.
Hmm.
Ellie is very cynical.
So I wanna talk about a couple of things. So I want to talk about Ellie being cynical. I also want to talk about episode 7, which that whole seeing them dragging Joel along called back episode 7 for me. Episode 7 is when we learn about Riley. So, there was this whole history that had been referred to throughout the season. The Book of Puns, um, Ellie's conversation with Maureen. Ellie's conversation with Marlene. So much in that show was brought to light in episode 7. So I want to talk about two things. So the first thing, I think that episode in particular, but that show, I think did a good job of introducing the flashback. So maybe we'll still see more Pedro because, he's still with her. Like the memories, there are things that we need to piece together. So I think that episode did a great job of kind of introducing how we can still learn about things we still have questions about.
Yeah. And the show has already introduced that mechanic, right? With Abby speaking to herself
Mm-hmm.
in her dreams, like her unconscious is attempting to help her through this trauma.
Mm-hmm. Oh I need to process that one. I need to process it because when that moment, it was odd to me. Like, because she says to her, I don't know you. This is you. How do you not know you?
And
Anyway,
that's how the episode opened, right?
right.
That's the very first scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't go in there.
His
I
brains are
don't
on
know
the floor.
you.
Yeah.
This is you. How do you not know?
Well, she's ignoring it, right? She's pushing it
Mm.
down. And so it's possible she was telling the truth in that moment. She didn't recognize herself.
Or, ooh, that voice of reason.
I can't hear
Because
you right now.
right. And everybody else in that room wanted to be that voice of reason, except for that one guy that kicked Joe. I don't like him.
Yeah, I don't like him either. Yeah. And I forgot what I was going to say.
Did he kick Joel or did he kick? He said a
Ellie.
bad word to Joel. He kicked
He kicked
Ellie.
Ellie. Yeah. Like he kicked her in the way that causes injury.
Yeah.
The way that they I really didn't know what was going to happen when they just fell into to each other, right?
Mhm.
When like I was because so Abby falls down the mountainside into the pit that we had recently learned are not traps, but kind of traps. Like the runners are the infected that are hiding under dead other infected. So we knew already that that's what she had fallen into, and I was like, there's only one person who can save her from this. So that moment, I knew she was going to run into Joel, and I knew it was going to be him that saved her. And I was on pins and needles about where that was going to go. Because at first I thought, is she going to change her mind about killing him? Is this going to make things even for her? No, because she's removed herself from any moral system because she believes she's found a loophole.
Yeah.
The clip he sent me from Entertainment Weekly with those three characters in particular intertwined that way, especially like, I mean, if we just want to talk about like the visual rhetoric of it,
Uh-huh.
it's framed like it's a magazine cover, but it's a video, which is really cool. So there's Pedro, right? We see him. Bella Ramsey steps out from behind him
Uh-huh.
to be in front of him, or at least like she or they close this way. And so maybe that is like the first season. And then behind him, back to back, is Caitlin Deaver as Abby. And so without him, then we go back to him. Without him there, then it's just those two. And so what is, I guess that's the rest of the complication is like, how do they figure out a way through this?
Well, so they have to get us invested. Like we were invested, and you know what? And this also might be kind of brilliant because we were invested through Joel's loss of Sarah. Maybe we are invested because of Ellie's loss of Joel.
This is the only decision that propels the story in a way that continues to grow the characters.
I mean, I get that, but I ain't gotta like it.
No, it hurts.
It hurt.
It's like that the best storytelling will just leave a hole in you.
It's just like I turned off the TV and I just sat and I just cried. I was
I
just
was
like,
I was pretty upset. Yeah. Because when it gets there, I mean, even though I'm like, okay, this is it, he's gonna die or whatever from this, but it just comes straight at you so fast. There's
it
almost
comes
no
at you.
time to catch your breath.
You know how fast it comes at you? How fast those infected came from
It was
nowhere.
quick.
It was, and it's, that episode was so stressful for so many different reasons. We think we get over one big obstacle, and then there's another one. And this one is more devastating than that other one.
And it happens away from so let's talk about Jackson Hole.
Okay.
we see this first. I think we see like Tommy's first like actual leadership, like what he actually looks like. He's giving a little like safety talk to his, I guess, leaders, or just a group of the town, and they're telling us this is as much really for our benefit as the audience. What is the actual strategy? How do we tell if things are going well or going poorly?
Right. But you know what though? They answered questions that you and I had last week.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, do we know? Do we have a plan? Like,
They did have a plan. I don't know. Do you feel like it was a good plan?
it was a good plan. The thing that I think about is the cleanup.
Yeah.
Like getting those bodies out of Jackson
And they're
Hole.
so contagious. They're
Oh my
still,
goodness.
even without the mist or the spores and stuff from the video game, like we know that stuff can travel, and we know also that they can like play possum or hide
I
under each
just
other.
so you bring that up. The one I want to talk about Tommy and that fight with the bloater.
Mhm.
And like I'm like, how is Tommy gonna get out of this? Is somebody gonna come up from behind him? And it was almost like all of this effort that you put forth, the thing just fell apart.
Yeah, he wore it down,
He wore it down.
but I did keep thinking like, who is going to save him?
I kept thinking the same thing. I thought it would be Maria.
Because normally it would be Joel, because Joel is always there. But I mean, that was why a main character, it's difficult to put a main character in a position that makes you feel like their life is actually in danger. And so one of the ways they did that was by removing Joel from the equation, because we haven't seen Tommy actually do much in terms of this kind of thing. And he didn't have a plan. He didn't
Mhm.
have a backup plan. He ran out of fuel and he just prepared to die.
Yeah.
So that's going to be something that he'll have to face that, or at least like that part of him will have to be developed, because
Yeah.
there wasn't any fight left. He ran out of the fuel and then he just prepared to die. And luckily the thing succumbed to injuries, I guess, is what happened. Like it finally just died.
Yeah. So earlier when I was talking about episode 7, I had 2 points. I didn't get to my other point.
That's my fault.
That's okay. So my other point that I wanted to make is so that moment between Ellie and what's his name? The guy who made them the steak sandwiches.
Seth?
Ellie and Seth reminded me of that moment in episode 7 between the commander guy who says, Ellie, you're so smart and you're so smart that you're dumb. So I don't know, something about that reminded me of that moment a
Well,
little bit more.
there's also that scene with Ellie and Jesse before they realize that Joel is missing. Joel and Dina are missing, and she's like, just doing Ellie shit. She's like, I'm gonna take this weed mask and all the bud I can carry back. And Jesse says, no, you're not. And she is gonna ignore him. She says, we all know one day you're gonna be running Jackson Hole, but you don't run it yet, so I'm gonna do what I want. That is She's right. He's definitely like the person who's in the leadership track. But the other option also is for her to be some sort of leader.
Right.
And
I wouldn't doubt it.
well, I think it's an option now that Joel is dead. It's probably, I
Oh.
mean, it would have been an option earlier too, but she was really just acting out so bad. The scene where she tells Jesse to like basically butt out of her and Joel's business, I really wish somebody had said that earlier. This whole town is gossiping about these two people who are having a very normal father-daughter
Mhm.
moment. What was that about? Why were they all so up in their business?
I mean, because kind of like family, right?
A small
You
town.
know, like I love both of y'all and
Yeah.
y'all need each other.
Hmm.
We see this going on. Y'all need to work it out so we can be
Hard.
okay.
It's hard to see people struggle.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's true too. And it's a liability. Having two of your strongest personalities be in conflict with one another to the detriment of their performance as community members in an apocalypse. I mean, that is kind of their business.
The key part there is in an apocalypse.
Yeah.
Like, that makes all the difference.
Yeah. And Dana
Mhm.
being sort of a witness, I guess, into the first piece of this of Joel's uh kidnapping, I guess. I don't know. They kind of just walked into it, but
Yeah.
Dina and Ellie are going to have things to talk about now.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be some complexity for their relationship, I think.
I'm very interested to see where the rest of the season goes. I am also very interested to see. So One of the things that you and I both talk about when we're offline is how much we learn from the other person and how much that like goes into other areas of our lives. So, one of the things that we talked about in previous iterations of our podcast was that I have this thing, and I think it may be a little bit of anxiety, how I take care of myself, that if I start to worry about where the story is going, I need to know. So I'll like read a synopsis or I will I will read a synopsis.
I've done it. I mean,
Yeah, like Ex Machina. There was a part I was like, I don't know where this is going. Let me read. And I used to say that it doesn't change anything for me because I still enjoy how we got to where we got to. Now I'm like, somebody is trying to tell me a story. They want me to see this in the sequence. They want me to be caught off guard. I'm trusting them enough to watch this show. I need to watch it. I need to do this. I also recognize that if reading a synopsis is what I need to do to take care of myself, I can read the synopsis. But
yeah,
also,
I
I'm trying to
know.
push.
I know people who also do that.
Yeah.
They're like, I have a friend who, if something gets too intense, he'll mute it,
Uh huh.
and the subtitles are still on, so he's reading what happens, but he just has to shut out something.
Hmm.
And when I first heard that, I was like, oh, I could. But then the more I think about it, it's like that's what it takes for you to consume this because it's designed to be high impact.
Yeah.
And there's nothing at all wrong with doing what you need to do to be comfortable or to at least like feel like you're being as well as you can when you're doing something kind of difficult.
But also, so I told you last week I was reading Heavenly Tyrant.
Uh-huh.
I finished that in 3 days. Like, I finished it in 3 days. And I did it without reading the synopsis. And there were parts I had to stop and be like, but I didn't read the synopsis. So I kind of think about that with this. Like, not that I can actually read a synopsis, but when that stress comes up, what happens in the game, in the video game? Even though I know it can be different, it also gives me a little bit of comfort to know this is something that can potentially happen. So as I'm going into this,
Yeah.
but then also, so what I was saying was just from our interactions and learning from each other. So a couple of things that I've thought about is trusting the showrunners, trusting Craig Mazin, all of these people, trusting Pedro, all of these people to deliver the product that they wanted me to see. So, that's just one of the things that I think I've learned as we continue to talk about these shows. And it doesn't just show like in how I watch TV now, but it also shows in how I read, how
Mhm.
I consume other art forms as well.
Yeah. In designing this thing a certain way, like they're also showing a lot of trust in us.
Mhm,
And so that's kind of I've done that too. I've wanted to skip ahead or read the synopsis, and I have done it. I pulled up, Wikipedia page on it or something, be like, okay, I need to know how this goes. But there are times when I really want to make sure that I am engaged as earnestly and as honestly and openly as I can be with something. It's helpful to remind myself that like they're showing a lot of vulnerability
mhm,
and they're putting a lot of trust in us to offer something that is difficult sometimes. It's I kind of call it the friendship test. Like if they need to tell me something that's hard to say, then I'm not a very good friend if I just shut it off
mhm,
and say like skip to the end, right? Skip
mhm,
the icky part or something. So engaging with media, engaging with like in all media have some sort of instructive component or constructive component, I guess is a better way to put it. Like there are pieces that we take from these things to inform how we go about our lives. And even if we think I'm just watching this stupid show based on a video game, no, you're not. You're receiving information and they if you take it out of order, if you take it apart, or if you try to turn it into something that they didn't intend it to be, that's your right, but you're definitely not taking the thing they've given you anymore. And I think that there's a lot of I think we're going to have a lot of things. Let's talk like predictions after this. So because a very significant event has happened, some things that you think will become very important themes. I have one. that I know, which is adaptation, like adapting to new ways of engaging with the infected and adapting to loss. A very, I'm not going to say pillar of the community because he was
Mhm.
kind of an asshole, but someone that everybody really relied on
Yeah.
is gone. And so there'll be a lot of adaptation and modification. There'll be a lot of learning outside of the, I guess, how folks had learned before. So I think, so for instance, Ellie's fighting training. She sucks
Mhm.
at fighting. She identifies as a badass, but
Mhm.
all she can do is carry a giant gun around.
Or a knife.
Or a knife, yeah. And so she got her ass kicked by a real opponent who wasn't even really trying that hard.
Right.
And it cost her, in my mind, this is my prediction, that she may interpret that or internalize that as one of the things that cost her the ability to save Joel. So I think her learning, I think she's going to shift gears in how she starts learning.
I think she's going to shift gears. And I also think that a part of that shifting gears is she goes from being the student to being the teacher. Her mentors are gone. Tess is gone. Tommy's still here. But like from the beginning, like the people she's learned the most from have been, well, I don't know. But just from what I've seen in the show, I think Tess was an impactful teacher. Joel was an impactful teacher. I think what we see moving forward is Ellie mentors somebody. Ellie teaches somebody because like we talked about how, Joel needed to not be there for her to be able to go to the next stage of development. Part of that next step is going from being a student to being a teacher. So I don't know. And maybe that's not something we see in this season, but I think eventually we see that because we know that she has every capability to run Jackson home. So how do we get her from where she is now to being that leader?
Well, and I think there's a kind of learning, is it codependent learning? Like it's a significant peer learning type of strategy. And I don't think it might not be codependent, but you check your strategies, your results, or things like that against peers who are also applying the same or a similar tool or method to something.
Hmm.
And so I think something that's really been noticeably absent from Ellie's life in Jackson Hole has been peers.
Yeah.
So she's been kind of isolated by Joel. Like his presence kept her from experiencing the usual learning moments that people did, like with them pulling the punches because
Right.
they were
Cause Joe ain't coming after me.
right,
Okay.
right. I am not kicking your ass because just like with Tess and the dude with the battery, what's your man gonna do?
Right.
And so Ellie gets her first real ass beating as Joel is
Oh
dying.
gosh, I didn't think about that either. Well, you said that and I got a chill.
What a time, you know?
What a time. What a time. What a way to get your first ass beating.
Yeah, yeah, because normally you would have that kind of thing in a peer group and the stakes are relatively low, right? The worst is usually, right? The worst is you just get physically hurt and your ego's bruised. Somebody breaks it up and call it even. But it's nothing but just loss and grief and darkness for her.
Do we invest in anybody outside of Ellie?
I'm invested in Abby because I feel like it is between Abby and Ellie that this parable or whatever about the cycle of violence will play out. I think what this whole decades long trajectory of how we got here will culminate in those two. And I think Abby and Ellie have a lot of learning to do together.
You talked about predictions. I was thinking about this earlier. I think another thing that we see Abby struggle with her decision. And maybe I'm wrong.
She'll have to.
She has to.
Yeah.
She has to.
She knows what her code is and she
Yeah.
knows she broke it. I mean, I don't think a person you put a band, you just close your ears or whatever and you do what mom said not to do, but later you still hear mom's voice in your head.
Right.
Or she finds out and you still get the switches. But
Yeah.
I think
The switches.
she she can't hide from herself. Even if she says, I don't
Yeah.
know you and she sees her unconscious or whatever, her conscience, she does. And the conscience will be back.
Right. And then does she start having dreams about Joel? Like, does Joel haunt her now? I'm really interested to see
It is
how they do
so
this.
it's so cool to have this psychic space to play.
Yeah.
when they went in there, I was like, surely we're not in this girl's head. And it is so interesting to be in there because it opens so many possibilities
Yeah.
for even that ad that you sent, the Entertainment Weekly thing, that felt very dreamlike. It felt like it was happening
Yeah.
in somebody's mind's eye.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really invested in her. I hope things go well for Tommy and Maria, but I have to confess I didn't care if either one of them died.
Really?
Because the only person who would care is Joel, and Joel is dead. That's not true. Ellie would
Well,
care.
Ben would care.
I forgot they had a kid.
You know, you were the one who talked all that talk about Ben last week.
I think because there was so much to deal with in the show, and I was so worried, like with trying to figure out if this is the moment that Joel is going to die. Like a lot of the stuff in Jackson Hole got by me. In fact, I was a little irritated by it. I wanted to spend time where
Mm.
Joel and Ellie and Dina were and Abby because to me they felt like the main characters. And that is, I certainly don't think that that was an intention of the show, and I think that it's a bias or maybe something preferential in my brain about like who are the real main characters. It will be interesting to rewatch it and see, try to pay more close attention.
You know, we were talking about this earlier, but I feel that there is a connection to the fierceness of the infected and the fierceness of Abby. Just like how everything and like the undead, just that's a whole nother show. The infected, it all went downhill. Like it literally went downhill
Yes, very, very fast too. Once it
very
started, it was
fast.
like done.
And like, so in the large scene, you know, there wasn't that action or that momentum, but things went downhill very fast. So I don't know. Like I understand what you're saying, but I think all of that chaos was intentional.
Yeah, yeah. The speed and the
Mhm.
just the pace of how all of this, it was all so carefully thought out. Like if we want to compare the way things like unfolded for at the lodge, or even the things leading up to the lodge, to also Jackson Hole, like all those preparations, all those resources, all that planning, all that building. They just worked their asses off for this thing, and it is just wiped straight clean in no time. I mean, it just unfolds. It sort of plays like it's happening in real time in a matter of maybe 10, 15 minutes at most. And then to compare that to what happens at the lodge, Joel and Ellie have taken turns dragging each other's carcasses across the whole country, and to be just go down like this
Yeah.
because Abby literally fell into them. And why was it so easy for Abby?
So, you know what? So, you talked about planning, and part of this makes me want to compare Abby to Jackson Hole. Like, Abby, anywhere in the world, she found them. It took her 5 years. She found them. She didn't do it alone, but she found them. And then thinking about of all the people that could have been on patrol that night, she ran right into the person she was looking for.
Yeah.
Like, it just I don't know, like, serendipitous is not the word because nothing was happy about this, but it was like it was supposed to happen, just
Things
like
just worked out for her.
or like her planning, she just needed to get to that point. Everything else took over. If she woulda never left, she woulda never gotten there. You know what I'm saying? So it's I don't know, I see a
It
parallel
was a
between
little inevitable.
it was
Yeah.
that's it was inevitable.
Right.
It was inevitable.
Yeah. And okay. So there's that kind of brings us back to where we started, which is like this cycle of violence. What are they trying to tell us? Is that it will always have consequences. Violence always has consequences. And maybe we're not the ones who experience them all the time, but somebody does.
Can I point out another parallel? And
Please.
maybe I'm just reaching here. So, Craig Mason, if you see this, please
Comment below.
comment below. Comment below. Find our email.
We'll tag him.
So, another parallel. So, I was thinking about that scene in episode 8 where Ellie is alone with what is his name? The cult leader,
David.
David. Ellie is alone with David, and we wait for somebody to save her.
Mhm.
I kind of feel like with that Tommy scene, Like, I don't know, I kind of feel like a parallel there. And I don't know, maybe I'm like digging too much into stuff, but I feel like they're so intentional that if I feel like it's there, it's probably there, you
Well,
know?
it's if you pinpoint it's there, then it's there. I mean, that's what reading a
Yeah.
text is,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
identifying that it's a parallel and it actually has an impact on the story because in both cases, we are not yet convinced that either of these characters can actually take care of themselves.
Right. Right.
And those are very important character moments. So to see Ellie fight off David
Oh,
and then get that experience of actually winning against someone who was out to get her that way. And then to see Tommy, like he wore this thing down, but he is the one who killed it.
he is the one who killed it,
So
and nobody came to save him.
nobody came to save him. So, I mean, we can't really take that away. Those are both moments that these two characters will have turned corners.
Yeah. And you know, it's so funny. In both of those situations, we would have been waiting for Joel.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
would have been waiting for Joel to come save them.
Yeah, because who else would it be? And that's kind of the thing, like, Joel is a deus ex machina a little bit. If he's around, you know the problem will be solved, and that's one of the reasons why he had to die for the story,
Mhm.
because there's no sense of actual danger whenever Joel's around. And even though that isn't true, like, anything could happen, right? The
Mhm.
biggest, baddest person could be standing next to me, and I could still fall through the floor or something. I mean, there is no person who's actually immortal, but his character had reached that status in the minds of the audience
Mhm.
and in the minds of the people around him. So consider even if they had been depending on him to save them, and one day he is disabled, aging, a half-deaf man, he was going to fail them eventually anyway.
Yeah.
So this way he didn't have to. When Abby was monologuing, I was really cracking up. When she was about to kill him, she was torturing him.
Yeah.
She was like, "I've waited so long." And he said, "Just shut the fuck up and
Right.
do it."
Just get over it. I mean, so I don't know if this is in the game, but you know how they made jokes about Joel being good looking?
Yeah.
Is that in the game?
Oh, I don't know.
I
It
just
would
think
be
it's
funny if it wasn't. It would
it would.
be funny if it was just a thing for the television
Right.
audience.
Because
Because
we
yeah,
love Pedro.
right. And we should.
We should.
He's I mean, he's just turning it out on so many of these properties he's in. Everything he does, he does it with like this openness, this like actual commitment to making the best version of the character. And he doesn't have and there's some other like leading men, what we would consider, I guess, Hollywood leading men who have similar like a similar lack of vanity. Or Channing Tatum is one who is like, I would watch. He even actually annoys me a little bit, because of his just adorableness. But there is no pretense for him. Every character he does, like in that Lost City movie with Sandy B, with Sandra Bullock, he is in full throttle mocking masculinity and mocking the kind of bro he is. And I fall for that every time. And so Pedro is one of those. Like, he's playing this ultra macho character, but he's really signifying the flaws in that.
Right. So I want to say something else about Pedro. So what is the movie he did with Nick Cage? The unbearable weight of
Of talent, whatever. Massive talent. The unbearable weight
massive
of it.
talent.
Yeah.
There is a moment, and we talked about when we have done other iterations of this podcast, we talked about that look that he gives. There's a moment in that movie, in The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, where he looks at the camera and you don't know if he's sinister
Mhm,
or if he's just adorable. Like
mhm.
you don't know what you're dealing with.
Well,
That
and he plays the like villain hiding in plain sight in the Kingsman Golden Circle.
yes.
And
Oh
he
my
is
goodness.
excellent. That's actually the first thing I really noticed him in. I saw that movie and I was like, "Who is this man? He's got it all." And he was just oozing just charisma,
Mhm.
machismo, like all of these things that character was. But when it came time for him to reveal his true motivation, that trauma was there.
Yeah.
That like darkness that happens to us when we lose someone, he just conjured it right up. And I believed immediately that he had been this the whole time. He was really good.
I did not like him in that movie, and I did not no, like, I didn't, because he did his job well. I did
You
not
didn't
like
like the
him.
character.
I did not like him. I did not like him. Yes, that man.
How much of this show, like let's take now that we're not saying goodbye to him because we've already established he'll be back in flashbacks, but now that this big chunk of the contemporary narrative is gone, the technical elements of the show, like what is there to appreciate about it outside of Pedro? Because there's lots.
I mean, Bella.
Is they have this sort of idiosyncratic kind of suaveness, like, and I think aren't they like in their 30s or something?
Are they?
I don't know. I don't know. I hope I'm not like, but they're certainly not 19 anymore. And just everything they do, I'm like, yes, you are a stupid 19-year-old. This is perfect.
Right.
I know. I totally believe it. Like their physicality with this awkwardness, and then to see them put in interviews and things, and they're just so like put together and speaking very intelligently. They have fully embodied this character.
They have fully embodied this character. Like, I don't see Bella, I see Ellie.
The scene where they were having to crawling is difficult, like just crawling while still like acting, and so they drug themselves all the way across the floor to where Pedro Pascal was lying and crawled on top of him. And like supported themselves. Like it was basically like a really long plank for that scene, and none of the realness of what Ellie was feeling left them for a second. Like they're doing like just, and I've seen Game of Thrones and I don't fucking get it. I don't know why people like this show. It is, I mean, I guess I do know why people like it, but it's not good. They're not like doing acting. It's a soap opera with CGI dragons, and that's cool if you like that. But like that being the predominantly their other experience, especially as a younger person, like this is heavy lifting they're doing. And I don't
Yeah.
think, even in the first season, they weren't up to what they're doing this season.
So I laughed for two reasons. First of all, the CGI dragons. Second, because Bella Ramsey is 21.
Never mind. So it's more that they're just like a really mature 21-year-old. Because in interviews and things, they're just like very like put together and talking really intelligently about the. Okay, so they're just a really good actor. Whatever. Who am I?
Goodness.
Oh, Caitlin Deaver's 31. Okay. If I'm wrong, I know I'm not wrong.
Goodness. I don't know. Should I Google to see how old Caitlin Devers
I already
is?
did. I just confused them. I
Okay.
just looked this up recently because Caitlin Deaver is 31 playing a 19-year-old,
Okay. Okay.
which is still very impressive. Yeah, she's 28.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, can you imagine trying to play someone? I personally am just ashamed of the person I was when I was 19. So going back to that place of playing a character who is that age with this level of complexity and that level of trauma, I mean, that's not easy to fully characterize that.
I mean, I think from what I've seen, Bella and Pedro have like this, it seems like a playful relationship, but it also seems like a mentor mentee. And Bella strikes me as someone who learns from those around them. So that's one of the things that I wonder too is, like what sort of guidance Bella is getting from interactions with other actors,
Oh
with
yeah,
other,
yeah.
you know,
There's research and things, and it comes up in a lot of autobiographies of child actors and stuff, like the ways that they acting and just this kind of performance is communally learned and is also learned through like that scaffolding that you talk about. Like who is your most common scene partner? You make each other the actors that you are. And then having this like incredible scale of the story, like where they're located, all of these sets, that also will inform the characterizations. It'll inform the work that the actors are able to actually do.
Yeah.
I feel better. Like I felt really bad. I was sad. I've been sad all today, but I feel better now knowing, or not maybe knowing, but just having processed the fact that
Yeah, you had to talk it out.
it's just part of it. In the same way that death is part of it.
Right.
And it's like we talk about like, oh, death is natural or whatever. Like, so what? What's that supposed to mean to me? Death still sucks.
It still sucks. It still sucks. And you know what? Like, as we talk, I think anybody who listens to this can tell how much we love this show.
Yeah.
And our investment, that love comes from a place. And I think that love comes from a couple of different places. I think in both of our own rights, like we're academics, we are also creatives, like in whatever ways that we are. I think that we bring a love to this because we are invested.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I want to see, like, I want to rewatch this episode, maybe after, like, this episode of us talking about
Yeah.
this big moment. Like, we have known that this was coming since the end of last season. We knew it was coming. We are here, like, it was a gut punch. Like, I want to go back after I watched the last episode and then kind of think about, where did I find my investment? Where did I? Oh, that was the thing I was gonna say. Okay, so when I was telling you about reading and how now when I'm reading, like, I don't immediately go to the plot. I don't go to Wikipedia to find out the synopsis. So that's another thing that I have been thinking about. Yes. Okay. So when I was reading, I told you I was reading this book. I have been starting to think about that moment I become invested. So even reading this book I was reading, watching other television shows, noting, okay, this is the moment when I care. Like, this
Mm-hmm.
is the character that got me there. This is the moment that got me there. So I'm really interested to see now that the person who got us there isn't there anymore.
Well, yeah. Who's next?
When do we reinvest?
That's a really cool practice. I'll have to like remind myself to do that
Mhm,
because for one, it's just a cool extra layer of
mhm,
engagement with the media, and also it's data.
mhm,
So it's a way to think about how you engage with anything, with any
mhm.
media. Yeah. And that's also, I don't know, like what is gonna, because my first thought was, I'm not watching it anymore. I know I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it, but I thought
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore. I don't care about anybody else. I had all those little kid grief reactions.
Oh, I was so mad at Caitlin Deaver. I don't even know. I just know the name from you saying it. I was so mad. And I had, no, this is a character. Don't be mad.
It's
It's okay.
fun. It's fun to like lean into that, but also it can get you if you're not careful. I went through that with Agatha all along. I was like, wait a minute, I gotta go back to reality.
Right.
We're getting a little weird here. Okay, well, yeah, next episode, maybe I'll be sure to be mindful of where I'm starting to care, what I'm starting to invest in, and I'll take notes, and you do the same, and we'll reconvene.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Join us next time for we don't have the title of the episode yet, do we? Season
No, we
yeah,
don't.
okay.
Oh,
Episode
what,
3.
what should we call it?
Oh no, I meant of the series, episode 3.
Episode. Oh,
I don't know the name of it.
this particular episode.
We're gonna call it
The moment we've been waiting for.
investment banking. All right.
Okay.
Join us next time for We Interrupt This Program.